Hello students, how are you? I hope you are doing fine and I hope you are still safe and healthy. I want to welcome you again to our English lesson for Senior 3. I'm still Teacher Hilda, your English teacher. I want to remind you that this program is brought to you by the Rwanda Education Board in partnership with Mastercard Foundation and Inspire, Educate and Empower Rwanda. So in our previous lesson, before we start, I want you to be ready with your notebooks and pens so that we can study. But before we start on our topic today, like I had earlier promised that we shall look at relative clauses, I want us to remind ourselves about what we looked at in our previous lesson. So in our previous lessons, our first lesson was about conditional sentences. Then our next one was about careers. We talked about different careers. We tried to define different careers and among others. So I hope you all remember that you can define what a vocation is. You can tell who a firefighter is. You can tell who a pianist is, among other things. So I always want you to revise so that you don't forget what you have studied. So like I'd earlier promised, today we are going to look at relative clauses. It is part of grammar. So I want you to write relative clauses as your heading. Relative clauses. The spelling of clauses is C-L-A-U-S-E. Relative clauses. Does anyone know what a relative clause is? Is there anyone who knows what a relative clause is? So a relative clause is one kind of dependent clause. It has a subject and a verb, but can stand alone as a sentence. It cannot stand alone as a sentence. It is sometimes called an adjective clause. Do you know what an adjective is? An adjective is a word that modifies a noun. So it's called an adjective clause because it functions like an adjective. It gives more information about a noun. For example, you know what a noun is and you know what an adjective is. If I say John is handsome, handsome is the adjective, giving more information about John. John is the noun. So we have said that it gives more information about a noun. A relative clause always begins with a relative pronoun. You know examples of pronouns, he, she, among others, which substitutes for a noun or a pronoun. So if it is John, well, we will use the pronoun he. Let's say Mary, we shall use the pronoun she. So we have said that the relative pronoun substitutes a noun or a noun phrase or a pronoun when sentences are combined. So we have two types of relative clauses. One, we have the defining relative clauses and we have the non-defining relative clauses. But before we look at the defining and the non-defining relative clauses, I want you to write down the definition of a relative clause. We have said a relative clause is one of independent clause or is one kind of independent clause. A relative clause is one kind of independent clause. It has a subject and verb. It has subject and verb, but cannot stand alone in a sentence. It cannot stand alone in a sentence. So we have said that it's sometimes called an adjective clause. It is sometimes called an adjective clause because it functions like an adjective. And we have said that an adjective gives more information about a noun. For example, if someone asked about me, do you say teacher Hilda or Hilda the teacher, meaning Hilda the noun? It is trying to give more information about me. Or you could say Mary is beautiful. So beautiful is giving more information about Mary. Mary is the noun and beautiful is the adjective. So we have said that it functions as an adjective. Why? Because it gives more information about a noun. So a relative clause always begins with a relative pronoun. It always begins with a relative pronoun which substitutes for a noun. So instead of the noun, you can use the relative pronoun or a pronoun when a sentence is combined.
Come along and play with us.
So let us look about defining relative clauses. Defining relative clauses. I want you to write defining relative clauses as your subheading. Defining relative clause. So defining relative clauses give information that defines a noun. So relative clauses of the defining type give more information about what we are talking about. So the information is necessary to complete the sentence. Without this information, the sentence is incomplete. For example, if I say the people, what are you going to understand? You're going to ask yourself, which people? So it gives more information about the noun to make the sentence complete. I've said that it is necessary. So we use that or which for non-humans or for non-human nouns. And we use that or who for human nouns. So in these sentences, we don't have commas. You don't put commas. Why? Because they are literally giving more information about a noun. So I want you to write the definition of defining relative clauses. So defining relative clauses give information that defines the noun. They give information that defines a noun. Let me first give you another example here. If I ask a question, where is the boy? What would you answer? What would be your answer? Of course, first ask yourself which boy I'm talking about. But if I introduce a relative clause, who fell off his bicycle? Who fell off his bicycle? Where is the boy who fell off his bicycle? So who fell off his bicycle is more information about the boy I am talking about. So without this defining relative clause, the sentence is incomplete because I cannot just say where is the boy. Where is the boy is incomplete because you ask yourself which boy. So we were still writing defining relative clauses give information that defines the noun. Give information that defines the noun. So the information that's necessary for complete identification of the noun. Information that's necessary for complete identification of the noun. This information is necessary so that the noun can be complete. So we use that or which. We use that or which for non-humans. We use that or which for non-humans. And we use that or who for humans or for human nouns. Full stop and the continuation. Do not use commas. Do not use commas. So when you're constructing a sentence in the defining clause, your sentence is not supposed to have commas. We're going to look at a number of examples, as many as we can. And also at the end of it all, I'm going to ask you to come up with your own examples. My first example is the people who live on the island are very friendly. The people who live on the island are very friendly. So, the people, that is a noun phrase. The people, noun phrase. So if I just say the people and then complete my sentence, the sentence becomes incomplete because I'm not defining which people I'm talking about exactly. So if I add a relative clause or a defining relative clause, who live on the island are very friendly. So you will know that the people I'm talking about are the people who live on the island and they are very friendly. So my next example is I am looking for a secretary who can use a computer well. I am looking for a secretary who can use a computer well. So secretary is the noun and who can use a computer well is the relative pronoun of the defining type. Why? Because it is giving more information about the noun. I want you to note that these sentences do not have commas, so you do not have to pause. You say, I am looking for a secretary who can use a computer well. Why? Because it is part of the sentence. It is trying to complete the sentence. So my next example is, she has a son who is a doctor. She has a son who is a doctor. So she has a son who is a doctor. So the doctor is the son of the woman. So I sent a letter which arrived 3 weeks later. I sent a letter which arrived 3 weeks later. So I want you to note the difference. The difference is that when we are talking about humans, we use who or that. But when we are talking about things, or when we are talking about non-humans, we use which or that. So that can be used for both humans and non-humans. But who is only used for humans, and which is only used for things, not animals, for things or non-humans. So my next example, the man that phoned is my brother. The man that phoned is my brother. The man that phoned is my brother. Have you found the keys which you lost? Have you found the keys which you lost? Then we also have, where are the eggs which were in the fridge? Where are the eggs which were in the fridge? So I want you to note that these relative clauses give more information about the noun. They define what we are talking about. For example, if I say the man, okay? Now, the man that phoned is my brother. So I'm trying to give more information about the man that phoned, meaning I'm trying to identify a noun, what exactly I am talking about. It is the defining clauses are used to complete a sentence. Because if I just say, we bought a house, how we bought a house then, but if I say, we bought a house which is 200 years old, we bought a house which is 200 years old, you see that I'm providing more information. I'm actually defining the noun, making the sentence complete. Because if I just say we bought a house, the sentence becomes incomplete.
Come along and play with us.
So we have said that defining relative clauses, they give information that define the noun. Give information that define a noun, and this information is necessary to complete the sentence. And we have looked at different examples. So let us look at non-defining relative clauses. Non-defining relative clauses. I want you to write non-defining relative clauses as your subheading. Our subheading is non-defining relative clauses. Is there anyone who knows what non-defining relative clauses are? So a non-defining relative clause gives us extra information about something. We don't need this information to understand the sentence. So when we talk about non-defining relative clauses, we talk about the extra information that is given. A non-defining relative clause gives us extra information about something. We already know something, but it gives us extra information about that particular thing. However, we don't need this information. Now, when we look at punctuations, at punctuating non-relative clauses, we shall see that they prefer a comma. Before you introduce the relative clause, you have to put a comma. I'll give you an example. My boss, comma, who is very nice, lives in Manchester. My boss, who is very nice, comma, lives in Manchester. Now, the non-defining relative clause in this sentence, who is very nice, because I would just say, my boss lives in Manchester. But we are trying to give more information, extra information about something. And which is the thing here? My boss. My boss, who is very nice, lives in Manchester. So my boss is the noun. Who is very nice is the non-defining relative clause. Why? Because it is just giving us extra information about the boss, but it is not defining the boss, okay? So it is just giving us extra information. It is not defining. I want you to compare this sentence. My boss, who is very nice, lives in Manchester. And then, the people who live on the island are very friendly. The people who live on the island are very friendly. So we see that in the first sentence, the people who live on the island are very friendly. Remember, the who is the relative clause. It's introducing the relative clause. Why? It is giving more information about actually, it is defining the people I am talking about. And who are those people? The people that live on the island. When we come to this other sentence, my boss, who is very nice, lives in Manchester. So who is very nice is the non-defining clause because it is just giving us extra information. Without this non-defining relative clause, the sentence would still be correct. For example, my boss lives in Manchester. But because we need a non-defining relative clause, we add there who is very nice. So my boss, comma, who is very nice, comma, lives in Manchester. So let us look at another example. My sister, who I live with, my sister, who I live with, knows a lot about cars. My sister, comma, who I live with is the non-defining relative clause because it is just giving us extra information about the sister, but it is not defining the sister. My sister, comma, who I live with, comma, knows a lot about cars. So let us look at another example. My mother's house, comma, which I grew up in. My mother's house, comma, which I grew up in, is very small. Another example. Last week I bought a new computer, comma, which I don't like. Last week I bought a new computer. So which I don't like is the extra information I'm giving you about the computer I bought, okay? So now when we talk about non-defining relative clauses, we see that they are just providing extra information about the noun. They can be left out and the sentence still remains grammatically correct. So we use who for people and substitutes the subject and noun. Whom is also used for people. Whose can be used for people or things. That is used for people or things. So which is used for things. I don't want you to confuse this. Don't use which for people. Okay? And don't use who for things. Who is for people, which is for things, whom is also for people, whose and that are the ones that go on both sides. They are used for people and things. So before we look at our exercise, let us try to remind ourselves about what we have looked at. We have been looking at relative clauses, and we said, you wrote the definition, that a relative clause is one kind of independent clause. It has a subject and a verb, but cannot stand alone as a sentence. It's sometimes called an relative clause because it acts like an adjective. So we have said that we have two types. We have the defining relative clauses and the non-defining relative clauses. We say that the defining relative clauses define a noun, give necessary information to complete the identification of a noun. And we say that non-defining clauses give us extra information about something. We don't need this information to understand the sentence. Without this information, the sentence will still stand correct.
Come along and play with us.
So we are going to write an exercise, and I'm going to read out the questions as you write them down, and later you write down the answers. So the instructions are: join the following sentences using a defining relative clause. Join the following sentences using a defining relative clause. Number 1, I like the dress, full stop. I like the dress, full stop. Anne is wearing it. Anne is wearing it, full stop. Number 2, we wanted to visit the museum. We wanted to visit the museum, full stop and the continuation. It was closed when we got there. It was closed when we got there. Number 3, I invited many friends to the party. I invited many friends to the party, full stop and the continuation. They couldn't come. They couldn't come. Number 4, we had fish for dinner. We had fish for dinner, full stop and the continuation. It was delicious. It was delicious. Number 4, we had fish for dinner, full stop and the continuation. It was delicious, full stop, and let us write number 5. Number 5, I met a girl last week. I met a girl last week, full stop and the continuation. She was my best friend in primary school. She was my best friend in primary school. Number 6. Number 6. I applied for a job, full stop. I applied for a job, full stop. I didn't get it. I didn't get it, full stop. I didn't get it, full stop. Number 7. Number 7. We wanted to travel on a flight. We wanted to travel on a flight. We wanted to travel on a flight, full stop and the continuation. It was fully booked. It was fully booked, full stop. Number 8. She is married to a man. She is married to a man, full stop and the continuation. She is married to a man, full stop and the continuation. He had been married twice before. He had been married twice before. Number 9. The house isn't in very good condition, full stop and the continuation. The house isn't in very good condition, full stop and the continuation. I'm living in it. I'm living in it. Number 10. I recently went back to the town. I recently went back to the town, full stop. I was born there. I was born there. So I want you to write down the answers. Okay, let us look at our first question. What is the answer to our first question? Our first question read, I like the dress, Anne is wearing it. I like the dress, Anne is wearing it. So what is the answer to our number 1? Our answer should be, I like the dress. I like the dress that Anne is wearing, or which Anne is wearing. I like the dress which Anne is wearing. I like the dress which Anne is wearing. Number 2, the answer should be, the museum that we wanted to visit was closed when we got there. The museum that we wanted to visit was closed when we got there. Number 3, the answer to number 3 should be, a lot of friends whom I invited to the party couldn't come. A lot of friends whom I invited to the party couldn't come. Number 4, the fish which we had for dinner, the fish, comma, which we had for dinner, comma, was very delicious. The fish, comma, which we had for dinner, comma, was very delicious. Number 5, the answer to number 5 is, last week I met a girl. Last week I met a girl who was my best friend in primary school. Last week I met a girl who was my best friend in primary school. Number 6, the answer to number 6 should be, I didn't get the job which I applied for. I didn't get the job which I applied for. Number 7, the answer to number 7 should be, the flight, comma, which we wanted to travel on. The flight, comma, which you wanted to travel on, comma, was fully booked. Was fully booked. Number 8. She is married to a man who had been married twice before. She is married to a man who had been married twice before. Number 9. The house in which I am living is not in very good condition. The house in which I am living is not in very good condition. Number 10. I recently went back to the town where I was born. I recently went back to the town where I was born. So I want you to make corrections where you have gone wrong. And if you have 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, that's good. Those who have below, I want you to keep trying, keep revising. By next time, you'll be better. So thanks for being good students. Till we meet again, stay safe. Bye.
Goodbye, 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 teacher. Goodbye, children. See you next time. Goodbye, 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 teacher.